Right, I've got the power amp, and we're going to sort these two boards out first. This one especially, because it's got the broken wires there. I mean, these caps have got long leads on. I don't understand why I didn't see that. You could have just wrapped the lead of the capacitor around there and made that up. So a bit botch. We've got some nice Vichets to are those them? Not those, somewhere. We've got some nice 220 Vichets to go in there. I can find them. There we go. Here. A little bit chunky. Yeah. So we've got those. So in all Vichets in this amp. So those will go in place there. Much more substantial. So we need to take this board off the back as well. So we need to undo those bolts there, because screws, bolts they are, because we need to check those resistors at the back to make sure they're all in good order. But that doesn't look too bad. We also need the schematic for the power amp section. I don't know whether I've got that in here. I've got the preamp. Base, the preamp. Let's have a look what we've got here. Two schematics for various amps that we've got in at the moment. No, so we need to get the schematic for this as well, because we need to get the values of these resistors right. They're here, because there's no guarantee they put the right ones in. So let's get this off and have a look at the back of this board. Obviously we've got two of these boards. Well, there we go. That's what we've got. And there has been a bit of a burn up on here at one time. My word, that's through. Is that burnt through? It has. Look at that. My word. Oh dear, that's a mess. So this has had a bit of a blowout at one time. So you can see, if we pull the board back, you can see there where this has been, something's gone up on it, one of the resistors at some time, probably a lot of years ago, looking at those resistors at the back, and you can see it's burnt this hole in here. It doesn't look great, does it? Just have a think about that. Well, these caps must be baked. So we got some kind of bias problem there going on. Got too much current draw. Let's take that other screw before it gets lost in our box. Let's have this other one out. Let me just... Yes, a bit more. So, right, so I'm just coming up with a bit of an idea here. So I've got this turret board, yes, and I know it's green, but does it really matter? Not really. So we've got 4 resistors on this board. Each 2 of these is wired to this capacitor. So if I mounted those up there, or even higher than that, there's plenty of space. We mount the cap at the side of it, and the cap's quite a bit then lower than the resistors, which means it won't be getting as much of the heat. These will be cooler anyway, because they're not going to be trapped in at the back of there, and they can get air around them. So we might be all right with that, and we can just cut ourselves a couple of boards up for this and mount these. They're about the same width, and that would look spankingly good. It'd, you know, these boards are shot. And the way this is designed, it's just going to be a disaster. You know, at some point this amp's going to have catastrophic failure with this. it's probably already had, you know, if the transistors blow, these will get so hot that board's just burnt away. The life of those capacitors with those lay flat on the back of these boards, if we look here, is just baking these caps. Right, so you can see what we've done there. So what I did, I relented on the green and I ordered a brown one. So we've cut this in two, and then we've fastened one on here in place of this rather charred board there, you can see. So he's nice and solid, got 4 fixings in there, and now we've just got to wire it all up. We've got the other side to do. If we just wander across there, and that one will be going here. Right, I've got both of them on and they're really solid. So now I've got to wire it up, and it's not so much wiring it up, it's arranging everything on this turret board, because we've got these trim pots, and obviously they're quite tiny, and they've got to go somehow. We've got to fit those so they can be adjusted quite easily, and they've got to go over these 10 ohm resistors, so we've got one on each side. Now on this board, that's the resistor they put in there, and that looks like 47 ohms to me. So a lot of botching gone on in this amp, because that doesn't match the schematic. Schematic says 10 and 10. So I'm not quite sure, you know, what's been going on there, and maybe that's why these boards have decided to spontaneously combust. Right, just looking over the top here, and I've got to get this flat, because otherwise I don't want to be soldering this board on its end on the turret, so I'll just end up with the solder running off. So that's 4 ohms. I said that was 47, it's 4 ohms. So they've put 4 ohms in there. They've just took the pot away and put that in. Whether they've guessed that or what, I don't know. But so 10 and 10 with the pot is 5. Right, there we are. That's the first one done. And yeah, it's not the prettiest thing, but it's very solid and sturdy. That's the main thing. But as I say, the way, you know, the way this one's wired, one of the capacitors is missing off there, but the resistors on the back. Obviously we're not putting the resistors on the back, which means the caps would have been in between the resistors, and they're going to bake. So with moving those over there means I've just had to extend some wires or whatever. But that is now finished, and we can look at this board now in a bit more detail that we got out. So if we just snips these components out on here, and we can have a look, and they'll snip that resistor out on the back there, and now you can see that this board is absolutely shot. It's just burnt through there just with the heat, which is why I don't want those capacitors near Right, I've got this thing fired up, and I've biased each side of it. It was running a bit hot when I first switched it on, but it was on the current limiter. I've adjusted those pots, they're brilliant, those pots are, and we've got this thing running reasonably nice. I've had the guitar through it briefly and it sounds really good. We've still got some issues though. This distortion doesn't work on here, and when we turn up the volume pot we get squealing on this channel. The other channel's fine, so we've got that to look at. But apart from that, and there's a couple of capacitors to change underneath, and we need to examine some of the wiring and stuff underneath, some of the work that's been done. So I'm going to get this on the scope in a minute, but it is running now. Oh, and the standby light still doesn't work either on here, because you can see, just draw down there with that, you can see the power light's working now, but not the standby. Pink, what are you doing with that cardboard box? Pink's discovered a cardboard box, which we've had a delivery today, and we'll be looking at that on the channel a bit later on. So I've got a meter going across each of these resistors here, measuring the volts drop. Transistors are cool, very cool. So you can see I've got going across that resistor there, I've got 8.3, 8.4 millivolts. Now they were set at 10 millivolts when I had this on for a while. It's been off, now it's cooled down, so we're down to about 8 millivolts on each side now. But I have a feeling that will creep its way up when this starts to get a bit more, when those transistors start to get a bit more warmer. Yeah, 16 milliamps we've got running on there now at the moment, and I've got 1 meter up the top there, monitoring one side, you can see, and I've got, and they say the other meter is there. 10 millivolts is across that resistor equates to about 20 millivolts, because that resistor is 0.5 of an ohm, 0.5 of an ohm. So how I did that was 10 millivolts, 0.010 divided by 0.5 gives me 20 milliamps. You can see it on there, 20 milliamps. And I think that's about where we need to be on this amp. And these transistors are cool. Where they were getting, before they were getting warm, this side was getting warm. Not long after I switched it on, this side was pretty cool, but they were well over biased. There was we'd got something like 90 milliamps on here and over 100 on this side. But obviously the trim pots, and that's why I can't understand how they run this amp without the trim pots. How would you get the bias on this correct? And hence why it's been running hot, and again the board's got singed. Right, got it on the scope. Got the fan going in the hot plate. You see, that's that oscillation we've got there, that's squealing on the pot when the pot goes flat out, so we need to watch that. So pretty stable on each side when it's cranked. Yeah, still got that bit of a problem. So now we've got a bit of a discrepancy. So we've got 0.99, just about a volt on the right side, and we've got 0.78 on the other. So now it's clipping. They have Yeah, so when it starts to clip, this the left side, the current drops a little. Yeah, they're about right now. The heat sinks are warming up a bit now, but the transistor's lukewarm on the backs, just lukewarm. Right, so the power amp section is now done. It's all set up and ready to roll. But what we're doing now is we're looking at this distortion pot. Now this pot has not felt great. It was actually seized up when this amp came in, and it's still very stiff. To get the distortion working, you have to have the foot switch in. But it only works when it's full up, and then when you turn it back it conks. So if we look at the meter now, that's a 5k pot. So if we look at the meter as I start to turn it back, you can see, and then it just cuts out. There's nothing all the way down, so that pot's had it, so we need a new pot for that. The bulb on the pilot light scenario here, if we look, this one's lit, this one isn't, the bulb's blown, so I've ordered some bulbs for that, so that's in hand. Well, that's okay, nothing wrong with that pot, so that's not causing the squealing. So there we go. So just a couple of bits to finish off, and then we can have a listen through the 4x12. I'm quite looking forward to it because I've had a bit of a go through this amp and it sounds pretty splendiferous. Right, I've got this done finally, my days. Sorted out all the problems. So the screeching on the volume pot, that was because someone had wired the grid someone had wired the grid stoppers to the centre tap of the volume instead of the jack socket. I don't know how the sockets are even working, but anyway, I've put that back, that's sorted. I've changed this pot on the distortion, and we're all good to go. Find out all the little problems that we had. This amp sounds superb. So we'll start with the normal channel. So let's see. So this mid boost switch, got 3 settings. Second one. need to put this in for the foot switch to get the distortion on. This thing is loud as well. Ooh. Bit fuzzboxy. Got to remember, what you got to remember is this amp's from 1967, so that is a long time ago, and distortion really wasn't that well developed in those days, was it? You know, what people had, but I think the fuzz box had only just come out, which is no surprise why this sounds a lot like an old fuzz box. That's not bad. Caught the volume then. You see, you got some. If you turn this treble control out, you've got quite a lot of mid in there. Tightens up in the middle and then gets brighter. Very interesting that. If you turn that almost down, just into that sort of mid boost range, that's not bad. For a 1967 amplifier, that's not bad, is it? You know, if this amp had been made in this day and age, you'd be saying, well, that's not a great distortion sound. But you know, for 1967, that's not bad. So we can flick in this boost. That plectrum, it's crap. That's not bad. For me, I quite like this space channel. Not as loud as the normal channel. Although if you crank all the tone in, it does get loud. If you back the tone off, and you really need to because it's bright, it takes a lot of the volume with it. But again, that's just the way it's designed. So there we are, the Vox Super Foundation. Not quite a super demo there, the hands aren't in great shape at the moment. Yeah, obviously this has been quite a big restoration project, especially on that power amp. But we've got this amp running pretty good, pretty dang good. Little bit of heat coming out of the top from those resistors though, but yeah, it's all there. So just before we finish, this amp, as I said before, had the back panel missing. If anyone's watching this video and you happen to have the back panel for this amp, you recognise this amp and you've got the back panel for it and you're willing to part with it, then please get in touch with me on the channel. Either leave a comment or just drop me an email, and we'd be great. The customer would be really grateful to get the back for this. You know, if you prefer to sell it, then yeah, you know, the customer's interested. He'd like to get the original back for this. That's got the serial number on, I presume, on the back. So I think the serial number's on a plate on the back. So if you previously owned this amp, or you know someone that owned it and still got the back, or you've got the back, or anybody else that's got the back, please get in touch. So that'll do it for this one. So thanks for watching. You all take care, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye bye for now.